One quiet decision in episode 5 does more damage than any explosion could. In a world where money controls land and land controls power, this single moment proves that nothing is safe anymore. What looked stable is now breaking, and the people in charge may already be losing everything without even knowing it. Episode 5 feels different from the very first scene. The pace slows down, the silence feels heavier, and every look between characters carries weight. This is not just another problem to solve. This is the moment where the story crosses a line it can never step back from, until now. The characters believed they were in control. They believed smart deals and tough words were enough to survive. Episode 5 proves how wrong that belief was. The turning point does not come with loud drama or sudden violence. It comes through a choice made under pressure, a choice that looks small on the surface, but deep down changes the direction of everything. One character chooses speed over safety, pride over patience, and short-term gain over long-term survival. In that moment, the balance of power quietly shifts. No one announces it, no one celebrates it, but the damage is already done. What makes this moment so powerful is how real it feels. There is no hero speech and no clear villain. Everyone involved believes they are doing what must be done. That is what makes the scene uncomfortable to watch. The camera lingers. The pauses feel long. The tension grows because the audience understands the cost before the characters do. This is not a win. It is the start of a loss that will unfold slowly. The episode also shows how the land itself feels like a trap. What once looked like opportunity now feels heavy and dangerous. Deals that once felt strong now feel rushed and shaky. Episode 5 turns the land into a silent enemy. Something that promises success while quietly setting the stage for collapse. The characters are no longer just fighting rivals. They are fighting time, pressure, and their own fear of falling behind. This turning point also exposes weakness. Strong characters hesitate. Confident voices crack. People who once led now react instead of plan. Episode 5 makes it clear that leadership in this world is fragile. One wrong step can cost respect, money, and lives. The episode does not rush this idea. It lets it sit, making the audience feel the weight of what just happened. By the end of this section, it becomes clear that episode 5 is not about what happened, but about what has been set in motion. The future conflict is already alive. Trust is thinner, risk is higher, and the people who thought they were ahead may already be standing on the edge of a fall they cannot stop. Episode 5 pushes every major character into a corner where hesitation is no longer an option. The pressure is no longer coming from rivals alone, but from time, money, and fear. In this episode, choices are made not because they are smart, but because they feel necessary in the moment. That is what makes them dangerous. When survival becomes the main goal, long-term thinking disappears, and episode 5 shows this clearly. One character makes a decision that feels bold on the surface, but is rooted in panic. The confidence they show is not strength, it is armor. Deep down, they know the ground is slipping, and instead of slowing down, they push harder. This choice sends a clear message to everyone watching. Pride is now driving the wheel. Once pride takes control, mistakes multiply quickly. The episode carefully shows how this decision closes doors instead of opening them. Trust also takes a major hit in this episode. Conversations feel colder. Words are chosen carefully. Characters stop sharing full truths and start holding back information. These small changes matter. Trust is the currency that keeps this world running. And episode 5 shows that it is being spent too fast. When one person chooses secrecy over honesty, it forces others to do the same. Soon, no one knows who is playing straight anymore. Family and loyalty are tested in quiet ways. There are no loud arguments or dramatic fights, but the emotional distance grows. A character who once listened now interrupts. Someone who once supported now questions. These shifts may look minor, but they reveal cracks forming beneath the surface. Episode 5 understands that real damage often happens without shouting. It happens when people stop believing in each other. Another important choice in this episode is choosing speed over safety. The rush to move forward ignores warning signs that were once taken seriously. Red flags are brushed aside as delays. This mindset turns smart operators into reckless players. The episode shows how urgency becomes an excuse for risk, and risk becomes normal. When danger feels normal, disaster is never far behind. What makes these choices painful is that none of them feel evil. Each character believes they are protecting something important: their business, their name, their future. But episode 5 reminds us that good intentions do not cancel bad outcomes. Once a choice is made in this world, it cannot be erased. There are no resets. There are only consequences waiting in silence. By the end of this section, it becomes clear that episode 5 is not about one bad decision. It is about a chain reaction. One choice forces another. One secret creates another lie. The path forward is now locked, and the characters must walk it whether they are ready or not. The damage is done, and the cost will soon be collected. Episode 5 slowly reveals that the real danger is not coming from loud enemies, but from quiet intentions. This episode is filled with moments where characters say one thing but clearly mean another. Their faces, pauses, and body language tell a different story. Nothing feels open anymore. Every conversation feels like a test, and every agreement feels temporary. This is where the game truly changes. Behind closed doors, motives begin to split. Characters who once worked toward the same goal are now thinking about their own exit plans. Some are trying to protect themselves, others are positioning for power. Episode 5 makes it clear that loyalty now has limits. People are no longer asking what is right, but what keeps them safe when everything collapses. That shift alone creates a dangerous environment where trust cannot survive. Small actions reveal big intentions. A delayed response, a missing phone call, a meeting that happens without the right people present. These details matter. Episode 5 uses silence as a weapon. Characters listen more than they speak, watching carefully before making their next move. This quiet tension builds because everyone senses betrayal before it fully appears. No one is surprised when cracks widen, but no one knows where they will break first. One of the strongest themes in this episode is control. Characters who once felt powerful now realize they are reacting instead of leading. Others see this weakness and move closer, pretending to help while gathering leverage. Episode 5 shows how manipulation does not need threats. It only needs patience. Those who stay calm gain power, while those who rush reveal their fear. There is also a clear divide between what characters promise and what they deliver. Deals are made quickly, but commitment feels thin. Smiles feel forced, handshakes feel empty. Episode 5 highlights how trust becomes performative, something shown for appearance rather than belief. This creates a world where no agreement feels final, and no alliance feels secure. Fear plays a major role in these betrayals. People are not turning on each other out of hate, but out of survival instinct. The episode shows how fear changes priorities. Long-term relationships lose value when short-term safety is threatened. Characters begin preparing for outcomes they never planned to face. This preparation, done quietly, creates distance between allies who once depended on each other. What makes this section powerful is that no betrayal is fully exposed yet. Episode 5 is about build-up, not payoff. The danger lies in what is coming, not what has already happened. The audience can feel that someone is about to be sacrificed, but no one knows who it will be. That uncertainty creates tension that lingers long after the episode ends. By the end of this section, it becomes clear that the real conflict is no longer about land or money. It is about control, fear, and self-preservation. Episode 5 turns the story into a psychological battle where the quietest player may end up winning, and the loudest one may fall first. Episode 5 quietly redraws the shape of the entire story. What once felt like a battle of smart deals and tough personalities now becomes something darker and more unstable. The rules that guided earlier episodes no longer apply. Success is no longer about who negotiates best, but about who survives. The pressure, without breaking, this shift changes how every scene feels moving forward. Before this episode, problems felt manageable. There was always a way out, another meeting, another deal to balance the scale. Episode 5 removes that safety net. Choices now come with weight that cannot be lifted later. When something goes wrong, there is no clean fix. The episode makes it clear that the story has entered a phase where consequences arrive fast and without mercy. The tone of the show also changes here. The atmosphere becomes heavier, slower, and more tense. Scenes linger longer than before, allowing discomfort to settle in. Episode 5 is not interested in rushing the story. It wants the audience to feel the stress the characters are under. Every pause feels loaded. Every quiet moment feels like a warning that something bad is forming just beneath the surface. This episode also reshapes how power works in the story. Power is no longer obvious. It does not belong only to the loudest voice or the person at the head of the table. Episode 5 shows that power now lives in information, timing, and restraint. The characters who speak less and watch more suddenly feel more dangerous than those who dominate the room. This reversal adds unpredictability to every interaction. Another important shift is how risk is treated. Earlier risks felt calculated, even controlled. In episode 5, risk becomes reckless. Characters accept danger not because they want to, but because they feel trapped. The story now moves forward with the sense that disaster is not a possibility, but an approaching reality. The question is no longer if something will go wrong, but when and how badly. Relationships are also redefined. Alliances that once felt solid now feel temporary. Episode 5 shows that trust is no longer a foundation, but a gamble. Characters keep working together, but the emotional bond is gone. Every partnership feels like it could break at any moment. This tension makes even calm scenes feel unstable, as if one wrong word could trigger collapse. Most importantly, episode 5 changes the emotional core of the story. The focus shifts from ambition to fear. Characters are no longer dreaming about growth or success. They are worried about damage control. This emotional shift makes the world feel smaller and more dangerous. There is less hope and more urgency. Less confidence and more doubt. By redefining tone, power, risk, and relationships, episode 5 becomes the true turning point of this season. It closes the door on the old version of the story and opens a new one filled with uncertainty, pressure, and inevitable fallout. From this point forward, every step carries risk, and every decision feels like it could be the one that destroys everything. After episode 5, the story no longer moves forward in straight lines. Every path now feels unstable, and every character carries the weight of choices already made. Episode 6 will not be about creating new problems, but about reacting to the damage that is already in motion. The fallout is unavoidable, and the pressure will only increase from here. One of the biggest changes moving forward is that consequences will arrive faster. The slow build is over. Episode 5 sets the stage for immediate reactions, emotional confrontations, and risky moves made without full information. Characters will be forced to respond before they are ready. This urgency makes mistakes more likely and recovery more difficult. There will be less time to think and more moments where instinct takes control. Power struggles are also set to explode. Episode 5 quietly rearranges who holds influence, and episode 6 will begin to expose that shift. Characters who believed they were secure will start losing ground. Others, who stayed quiet and patient, will step forward at the right moment. This creates tension because authority is no longer clear. Multiple people believe they are in control, and that belief will push them into conflict. The risk of betrayal increases as pressure rises. Episode 5 already weakens trust, and episode 6 will test it. Secrets kept in episode 5 will start surfacing. either by accident or intention, when truth comes out in this world. It rarely brings peace. It brings anger, fear, and revenge, relationships that survived earlier seasons may not survive what is coming next. There is also a growing sense that someone will be forced to take the fall. The system cannot absorb this much pressure without breaking, and episode 6 may reveal who gets sacrificed to keep everything running. This creates fear among the characters, pushing them to protect themselves at all costs. Loyalty becomes optional. Survival becomes personal. Emotionally, the story becomes colder. Characters begin to detach from each other, choosing strategy over connection. Compassion feels risky. Trust feels dangerous. Episode 6 and beyond will show how isolation grows. Even among people who work side by side, this emotional distance makes the world feel harsher and more unforgiving. The land itself will continue to play a silent role in the chaos. What once represented opportunity now feels like a trap closing in. Every deal tied to it carries risk, and every move connected to it deepens the danger. Episode 5 transforms the land into a source of constant tension, and future episodes will only strengthen that feeling. By the time episode 6 begins, there is no going back to how things were. Episode 5 draws a hard line between the past and the future. Everything ahead is shaped by fear, pressure, and consequences that cannot be avoided. The story has entered its most dangerous phase, and only those willing to adapt fast will have any chance of surviving what comes next. Episode 5 does not just move the story forward, it locks it into a direction that cannot be changed. By the time this episode ends, every major character is standing at a point of no return. There are no safe exits left, no clean solutions waiting to be discovered. The world of the story has narrowed, and the pressure has become constant. From here on, every move will cost something important. What becomes clear is that the system itself is starting to break. It is no longer strong enough to protect the people inside it. The rules that once created order now create conflict. Characters realize that playing by the book no longer guarantees safety. This realization is dangerous because it invites chaos. When rules lose meaning, people begin to create their own. And those rules are often driven by fear and anger. Episode 5 also forces characters to face who they truly are under pressure. Masks begin to slip. The calm leader shows desperation. The quiet supporter shows ambition. The loyal partner shows doubt. These shifts are not sudden, but they are permanent. Once someone shows their true self in a moment of crisis, it cannot be unseen. Episode 6 and beyond will build on these revealed truths. Another key change is how loss is handled. Earlier episodes treated loss as a setback. Episode 5 turns loss into a warning. Every mistake now carries a message, and ignoring that message will only bring more damage. Characters who refuse to learn will repeat their failures on a larger scale. This story begins to reward awareness and punish denial. There is also a growing sense of isolation. Even when characters are together, they feel alone. Trust is gone, and communication becomes careful and limited. Everyone is protecting something, and that protection creates distance. Episode 5 shows that isolation is not always physical. Sometimes it happens while standing right next to someone who no longer feels safe. The emotional weight of the story deepens here. Hope becomes quieter. Confidence fades. What replaces it is determination mixed with fear. Characters are no longer chasing success. They are trying to avoid collapse. This emotional shift makes future conflicts more intense because every loss now feels personal. Every failure feels final. By the end of this section, it is clear that episode 5 is the true dividing line of the season. Everything before it feels like preparation. Everything after it feels like consequence. The story has entered a phase where survival demands sacrifice, and not everyone will be willing or able to pay that price. From this point forward, the tension will not ease, it will tighten. Episode 5 sets that trap perfectly, and the remaining Episodes will show who escapes, who adapts, and who gets crushed by the weight of decisions they can no longer undo.